Good morning. Happy Saturday. This is Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise with Abby Santiago Monroe. I'm a CFP.
And Scott Sellis. I'm an attorney with Chiamento, Sellis, Dwyer, your legal team for life. And you are listening to Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, where our mission is to inform, educate, and inspire.
I'm sorry. Get this right.
We have to laugh because
you just can't get this right, right?
No.
The purpose.
I think that was great the way it was.
No, it was all messed up. Listen to how this flows. The purpose of our show is to inform, educate, and inspire you to make healthier, sustainable decisions.
That's right, because, it reminds me a little bit of the Seinfeld show. Remember George Costanza?
I remember George.
That guy couldn't make the right decision for anything, so you know what he used to do?
What did he do?
There's actually an episode where he created the Costanza rule. Whatever his instincts told him to do
the opposite.
He did the opposite and had tremendous success. It was
really?
Yeah.
You're doing the whole George thing on us right there, sitting there, your whole head, the way it's moving. Listen, we have a great subject today. We have Jeremy McDonald. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on the show. And I don't remember the Costanza rule, though.
You don't remember the Costanza rule?
Yeah. Of course, I didn't watch Seinfeld that much.
Jeremy, you wrote a book, Peace, Be Still. And what inspired this?
Well, I had about almost 7 years ago. I'm sure both of you have experienced this in your life, where I just hit rock bottom in my life. I was running a mortgage company, and I lost my house, and because of the industry that happened, it crashed, and lost my job, and lost my house, lost my car, lost all my stuff. Actually, my stuff had been stolen from me.
Oh my gosh!
And
wait, was your stuff stolen while you were going through all this?
Yeah, I put it into storage, and my storage locker got broken into.
That person's not going to go to heaven.
As a result of not having any money, I didn't pay the insurance on the unit, and I actually got behind on. It's a long story, but anyways, the point is that
you were at the bottom.
I'd lost everything in my life, pretty much everything that I considered important at that time. And so it left me there with not much to do other than to ask the question, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And, up to that point, I'd had a few addictions that I was trying to overcome. When you're sitting there with nothing, you learn that you have a lot more than you think you do. And so I just really learned how to process things and find peace even when your mind's not completely active. And from a guy that ran a company with 100 employees, that wasn't easy because I was constantly on the go.
Okay, we're gonna stop because your story is for some listening, it's really gonna hit home. For some of them, they're walking into or in the middle of or out of, and then there are some that have not had this experience that need to just be a little sensitive to what that's like, because you said both of you, and I have to say I've been very blessed. I haven't gone through that. Scott?
Oh, I had my times.
Okay. So
I'm very interested
you're relating
in
to this story. Yes. So, Jeremy, first I want to thank you for coming on the air and sharing your story and your book, Peace, Be Still. Where can we find this?
Well, right now it's on Barnes & Noble Nook, and it's just been loaded into distribution with Ingram's and Amazon and Bob and Taylor. So it'll be in Barnes & Noble and about, book-wise, one you can hold in your hands in about 4 to 6 weeks.
Wonderful.
And then you can get it off of my website right now, and you'll get an autographed copy at jeremymcdonald.net.
jeremymcdonald.net. And McDonald is just MC.
Yeah, McDonald.
Okay, great. So you ran a company with 100 employees. That's a pretty nice-sized company.
Yeah.
How long were you in business?
I worked for I ran the company, but I still work for somebody else. I ran their company. And I ran a company called Advocate Mortgage. And I did that for about 2 years, but I came from another company called HSBC, and which I'm sure you guys are familiar with.
Just an itty-bitty little company that we've never heard of.
Yeah, it's really small.
So you were a ripple effect of the collapse, the financial collapse in 2008.
Yes, I was. Yeah, and I started experiencing that actually before the big push in 2008, and actually started experiencing it in 2006.
Yeah.
In 2006, it started. My specialty personally was subprime and secondary market.
Wow.
And so that's how I made my money and how I made my living. But like I said, when you get to the point where all your savings is gone and all that stuff, it makes you start thinking and asking real good questions. And so I started asking myself, well, Jeremy, how did you get here? What brought you to this point? And not saying that things that we were doing was bad and that, but really what I had to look at is my addictions. And I looked in the mirror and said, I really don't like the person sitting in front of me in this mirror. And so then I started asking myself, well, why don't I like myself? And the biggest part is that I didn't feel authentic in my life. There's nothing wrong with a person that does mortgages or does that kind of living. I just didn't feel aligned with that in my life. And so then I started asking, well, what makes me happy? And my previous life to that, I was doing sales training and inspiring people in the sales world in HSBC and doing leadership training. And the answer to the question is I love inspiring people. And I love helping people. I like helping people achieve their goals and be empowered and that stuff. So I was doing a life that I didn't feel good about myself. And incidentally, I was also doing a bunch of recreational drugs and that kind of stuff. And so I said to myself, if this is what life is, I don't want to do it.
So you stepped back and saw that there were some disingenuous pieces of your life with who you are and your value system.
Right, and I didn't feel whole as a person. When you're not, when you feel not in balance with what your value system is or who you are, you don't feel whole. You don't feel like a whole person. So I asked myself the question: well, how do I get to the next level? How do I become whole? And I happen to be a spiritual person, and so my question was to God and asked, well, how do I get to the next level? And so I started getting a whole string of lessons on how to find that inner peace. And I did it a lot through meditation. And then I would, my life at that point, I was looking at and said, well, all this happened to me because the economy collapsed. And all this happened to me because these people were bad people, or these people did this to me. And then I had to start looking at myself and holding myself accountable and taking responsibility for where I was at. And when I really processed a lot of it, when I went back to when I started down that path and started running that company, there was a pause moment where I thought, I don't really want to do this. Why am I doing this? And why am I going into this business?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's that?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, what happened is that I went forward, and then throughout the couple of years that I did that, I would look at myself and say, I really don't like this job. Why? And I kept on proceeding forward. And I said, well, why did I stay? And so the answer to the question for me was, well, I stayed because, I liked the money, I liked the things that came along with it, and that kind of stuff. But I still didn't feel authentic in what I was doing. And but then I actually went back even further in my life and started looking at decisions I made where I didn't make the decision based on what would make me happy and bring myself joy. I made the decision based on what other people thought, what other people thought I should do, and I made the decision based on this would make me more money, that kind of stuff.
Jeremy, I'm going to stop you. That's a big one. Did you talk to other people and get their feedback on how much of their life is about what other people think?
Yes. Since then, I've talked to a lot of people that have coached, and they make a lot of their decisions based on what other people's opinions are. Mm-hmm. And in my practice, I actually guide them through finding their own opinion. What is it you want? And so prior to that, I had asked what success was, and I based on what I saw on television and based on what I saw in the world, what is success? But since then, I've discovered success is a feeling inside of you. Mm-hmm. And if you feel successful, naturally your life is going to be successful. But it's not going to be measured based on any principle other than the fact you already feel success inside of yourself. You feel empowered. And so I don't make the kind of money that I used to. But I'm very, very happy where my life is because I've got that level of success in my live. I've got great friends. I got people that I love around me. And I'm getting ready to go on a book tour. I'm doing something I never thought I would have done in my life. I've wrote a book. I'm inspiring other people. I'm enjoying the interaction. I'm getting to meet other souls and other people doing the same thing like you two. You're inspiring other people and helping people have happy lives. So I'm getting to connect with you. So to me, that's success. So I found my authentic life, and it grows each day because I discover more about myself. And so what I realized is that the journey is where your success is, and the more self-aware you become of who you are, and the deeper you get in, that's your success. And that's where you find your happiness.
What's really interesting to me is, and I won't say the name of the book because we're here to help promote you and your story and your book. But when I was going through my own stage of reinvigoration, for lack of a better word, I did a lot of reading. And there was one book that I read that especially touched me, and I used to think it was a rah-rah sales motivational type of a book.
Right.
And what I found was exactly what you've been describing is that one of the key elements of being successful in your life, however you want to define success, is to align your behavior with what your principles are. And it sounds to me like you had the golden handcuffs on, that you were doing something you didn't like doing, but it was making so much money for you that you couldn't get away from it. But somehow or other, things happened, whether they were under your control or not, that resulted in you losing those handcuffs and having to find new ones. And it sounds like you found something where you're able to align your principles, your life principles, with the things that you do, which is what I'm taking you to mean by success. Am I getting that right? Or
you're right on the money. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. That's a hard thing to find.
Well, but you know what? I guess the blessing, and there was a blessing in this for you, wasn't there, Jeremy? Yeah.
Yeah, there was. I actually, at the time, I called it Cosmic 2x4 upside the head.
What did you call it?
I called it Cosmic 2x4 upside the head.
Okay, because you weren't hearing until you got hit over the head. We're going to take a quick commercial break. If you just tuned in, you're listening to Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise with Abby Santiago Monroe. I'm a certified financial planner.
And I'm Scott Sellis, an elder law attorney with Chimento Sellis Dwyer, your legal team for life.
Our guest is the author of Peace Be Still, Jeremy McDonald, and we'll be right back to finish hearing your story.
Looking for a good book on retirement? Here's a thought. Why don't you write your own? Katsuri Monroe & Associates, a financial advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, Inc., is proud to offer the Dream Book, a guide that can help you envision what you plan to do in the years ahead. So call Katsuri Monroe & Associates today at 386-597-2994. That's 386-597-2994. Or stop by their office at 4873 Palm Coast Parkway, Palm Coast, Florida, and start planning for what's ahead in your life. Ameriprise Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA and SIPC.
Many retirees or their loved ones live in this great community. But as health declines or someone dies, things get complicated and stressful. Hi, I'm attorney Scott Sellis, a partner at Chimento Sellis Dwyer. We can help you create a legal plan that gives you peace of mind. Learn how to ease the stress of dealing with an ill loved one and your family after a death. At Chimento Sellis Dwyer, we are not just attorneys, we're your legal team for life. To learn how to get a free consultation, visit palmcoastlaw.com. Offices, Palm Coast and Daytona.
Hi, welcome back. This is Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise with Abby Santiago Monroe.
And I'm Scott Sellis, an elder law attorney with Chimento Sellis Dwyer, your legal team for life.
And we have Jeremy McDonald. Welcome, Jeremy, the author of Peace Be Still. Jeremy, you were sharing with us the trauma and the tragedy that you went through with the whole financial. You brought it back to 2006, and I noticed that this entire downturn started in 2006. But you said something that caught me a few times. One of them is that you went through the victimization role first.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
A lot of times people look at life as what's happening to them and not what's happening for them. They don't look at the continuous possibilities going on in their life. And so what I found is that I was looking at life through what was happening to me. And as a result of that, I felt overwhelmed by that life. Mm. And what was even more interesting about that is I went out into the world trying to control it and push it to what I wanted to have happen. And I'm not saying that when you go out there, you're not going to try to achieve goals. You're not doing the work that it takes to achieve goals. But I had started out early on in life seeing, my family struggle, and even seeing my mother go without food in order to feed me. So I started as a little boy, started setting a mindset that I was going to be very successful so that I could take care of her so she'd never want anything. And about around this time, it was in my 30s, I looked back and I remembered that mindset. And I actually looked at my mother and I said, I've been spending my entire life trying to create a world so you would never have to desire for anything. You wouldn't have to struggle anymore. And she said, and she looked at me and said, well, maybe it's time to start living for Jeremy. But we get these programs early on in life, and as a result, we get in a prison of our own thoughts, and we get enslaved or victimized by our own thoughts, and we get caught up in our own thoughts. And how we free and liberate ourselves is we start making decisions and say, well, wait a second. What is in my highest and best good? What's going to make me happy? And as a result of you making yourself happy and you looking at yourself first, you're going to, by default, help other people.
Jeremy, how do you balance, though, that from being selfish and self-centered?
That's a good question, because I think the Dalai Lama says it best. He said, compassion heals all. And what I took from that is that if you operate with an understanding of yourself and other people, and you operate with compassion for yourself and other people, you're always going to find the balance. And what I mean by that is that I'm working to look at where I need to be and loving myself and being compassionate to myself. But by default, it's not a selfishness, because what I end up doing, because I'm loving myself and understanding who I am through awareness, I'm giving that back to other people. But what most of us have, we have a mind chatter going on inside of us saying, I can't do this, I could, there's a victim mind going inside of us that's preventing us from moving forward. Like if you're ready to go, like you're ready to take a risk or a leap of faith, there might be a mind chatter and that says, oh wait, that's going to be really hard. Oh wait, I need money for that. Oh wait, I need to be able to do this. And you won't do it. But if you change that mind chatter inside of you and start saying, it's okay, you talk to yourself in the inside and you start loving yourself and quiet that voice, you're going to start changing how you handle other people as well. Because how we operate on the inside is how we operate with other people.
What's really interesting about what you're saying right now is that you focused a few minutes ago on the fact that you, like so many other people, focused on, gee, it's the economy that's making this happen. Gee, it's this. You focus on things that are way beyond your control. It's like trying to control the weather. What has been your experience to get past that station in life where you just feel unhappy and just dissatisfied? What types of things do you find it's beneficial for people to focus on in order for them to pierce through that bubble, if you will, that's holding them back?
I'm going to say two things: gratitude and living in the now of the moment. Mm. And that sounds very simple, but there was a point where I was sitting. I actually had to move back home to my family's house, and at one point, I had gotten to the point. I didn't have anything else other to do, and I was enraged. So somebody said, "Well, you have to be grateful where you're at right now," and that didn't make me very happy. But but I started to say, "Well, wait a second, maybe there's something to this." And so I just started with saying, "I'm grateful for being alive today." And at that point, I was actually so depressed it was even hard for me to get out of bed. There was at one point where I lifted myself out of bed, and I fell back into bed. And so what ended up happening is I just started saying, well, I'm grateful that I woke up today. And I just started with the smallest little thing. And then eventually it became, I'm grateful that somebody invited me to go out to lunch today, or I'm grateful that I got an interview today, or I'm grateful that I went out to this movie today and somebody paid for it for me, or I'm grateful I have gas in my car, that kind of stuff. And so what that does is it actually changes you inside, and there's a chemical change that happens inside of your body.
When you're grateful.
When you're grateful, yes. And then the second thing is to live in the now of the moment. So most of us, and how we get caught up in the victim mindset, is we're still looking, well, if this would happen, then I could change this. Or, well, if I have this, I have this. I actually have a client that they have a scar on their body, and they think that if that scar wasn't there, then they could have a husband. and I said, that scar has nothing to do with you not getting a husband.
But that's reality for her.
It is. It is very much reality for her. And I said, why don't we look at what you do have to offer?
And it's likely that somebody who suffers from that will be shy about things and will try to cover them up and will act in a manner that shows their discomfort, which creates the self-fulfilling prophecy that ends up not finding somebody that she can connect with because she's so busy trying not to connect to hide her scar.
You know what I loved that you said, Jeremy, is in the distinction between trying to make yourself happy versus being compassionate with yourself. Because if she was compassionate, then she would be forgiving of that.
Yes.
If she's compassionate, she's not focused on her own perceived
It's so easy
weaknesses.
to see it in other people, though. It's within ourselves. Are there some exercises that you recommend that we can engage in to help discover where we beat ourselves up? Because it's that self-talk that you're talking about where we really, I noticed my 8th grader, he was trying to get a job to do some volunteer work, and I could not believe this. We went and picked up an application. He looked at the application and shot himself down before he put his name on the paper.
Isn't that horrific?
And then he let it go for 2 weeks. So you know what I did? Well, Jeremy, you're not going to be proud of me, but I controlled the situation. I took away every piece of technology he had until he created a resume that he felt good about himself.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what we call 20 seconds of courage. Because once he actually created a resume and handed it in, whether he got the job or not, he took the time to actually do it. And just creating the resume, actually he overcame a fear. And he overcame something in himself. And so some techniques that I do is that I started practicing every time I would shoot myself down like your 8th grader, and I would look at something and I'd say, well, there's no way I'm going to get that. And I was actually doing that prior to, to all of this. Because by rights, I didn't have the experience to run a company. I was a sales trainer and a leadership trainer, but I'd never ran a company of that size. But I just said to myself, well, and I just submitted the resume and ended up getting the job. But for techniques, every time I start to shoot myself down, and I still do it sometimes, I look at it and say, well, what do I got to lose? Like right now I'm booking a book signing tour, and I'm calling different churches and spiritual centers, different professional centers, and and some of them have things that maybe I don't have the based on their agenda or their requests, I don't have the qualifications for, like the size of people I've spoke to. Like one wanted you've spoken to a group of 5,000 or more. I haven't done that yet, and I thought to myself, well,
we have to have that many listeners, Mark. We have a ton of listeners, don't we? Thousands, in the hundreds.
Yeah. Well, just to me, well, now I can say I have.
There you go. Cross that one off your list, baby.
But what happened is I just said, well, wait a second. I'm just going to submit it. Because what do I got to lose?
Right.
And the only thing that's holding me back is my fear. And the second thing I do is that if I go, I have, we all have some physical things that we don't like. And one of the things that I started doing is I actually started standing in front of the mirror. And I just started by looking at myself in the eyes and going, I love you. And you would not believe how many people I've had do that exercise, and their faces start to twitch, and it starts to move around, and they start getting fidgety. And some people actually said it physically hurt.
Mm-hmm. Very uncomfortable.
And I said, yeah, it physically hurts because you've never said that to yourself. You're constantly saying, I love you to everybody else. You're constantly doing for everybody else. But you've never given back to yourself what you give out to other people. And there's a flow. There's a give and take within the universe, or whatever you want to call it, that giving and receiving is a flow. So we give out a lot, most of us, but we're unable to receive. And you can always tell the person. My mother was a nurse for 30 years, and she would give, and give. But if you went to take her out to dinner, she'd be like, no, I don't want you to put yourself out. And I'd be like, Mom, I love you, and I want to take you out.
Jeremy, thank you for all the love that you're putting out there. I really feel that, don't you, Scott?
I do, and in my practice, I deal with a lot of people in their 80s, and what I've seen a lot is that probably 3 out of 4 people have gone through an episode in their life, whether it was a loss of a child or a financial tragedy, that they had to overcome. So the message that you have about overcoming adversity has to be resonating with a ton of our listeners.
But loving, being compassionate with yourself. The book is called Peace, Be Still. I love it because we don't stop long enough to love ourselves and be appreciative of what we have. Thank you so much, Jeremy McDonald, and we can find your book at your website, jeremymcdonald.net, and you're also now in the Nook at Barnes & Noble's?
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a blessed weekend, and good luck on that book tour.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate your time.
Best of luck.